We have Dottie and Rob, Travels with Dottie here, and we're traveling today. Today's adventure is we're leaving our spot in Eagle Nest, and we are traveling to the town, or I think it might be a village of Cimarron. And on the way, we're going to go through the amazing Cimarron Canyon, which you've seen on a couple other videos, but there is no chance I am going to drive through that canyon without filming it, because spectacular is not an exaggeration. So I'm going to turn this back on and facing the road as soon as we get there, and we're going to be checking out a couple of the New Mexico State Park, Cimarron State Park campgrounds to see how populated they are. We're going to be doing laundry. We're going to be getting something to eat. And I am going to take you inside a famous historical surprise hotel. I love this hotel, and you're going to love it too. Wyatt Earp used to stay there. Seriously. See you in a few. So what we have here it's from Weathers RV Park. This is an 1/8 of a mile. This rise is the entrance really to Cimarron Canyon. And it starts being interesting right here and continues all the way to the other side of the canyon. And then it's fairly flat and by comparison featureless going into Cimarron. But through the canyon, it's pretty spectacular. And as you'll notice here on this trip, it just gets more and more interesting as we climb our way through the canyon here. And hopefully the camera will not overheat. Unintended consequence of getting a black cover for my dash, which really helped with the glare, but did not help, but it absorbs the heat and it makes it hot around the camera, sadly. So that's not good. So hopefully it's not so hot today, and I'll be able to take you all the way through the canyon here. Now we've gone over the top and we're dropping into the canyon. That's my phone making obnoxious noises. I apologize for that. But as most of you want a video with high production values, you're in the wrong place. You're on the wrong channel. Alert, alert. I was driving through here in August with Sally Forth, and I said to her, she was staying at Ponderosa Campground, which is part of the Cimarron State Park, and we're going to go through there. And I picked her up and I said, there's snow by the side of the road. And I don't blame her. She would not believe me, but I swear there were little tiny snowdrifts from overnight by the side of the road. And you should have seen her face. They were there. It was pretty amazing. It was in August. And it was, I don't know, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was probably 70 degrees. You do have to be careful here. Big trucks. You see these big trucks coming the other way? It's narrow. You got to be careful. And there are all sorts of RVs and all sorts of things happening on this road. So you do have to be careful. And I do have a filter on the lens to reduce glare even further, and I'm hopefully that's doing well. For those that care, I'm recording this at 4K 30 frames a second. They always say, if you want more cinematic quality, do 25 frames. And I can't tell the difference between 25 and 30. I don't see how you would, but photographers and videographers, I am neither one of those, know the answer to that and probably could give me a stern lecture. Now, one of the things I'm curious about on this trip, on our adventure today, is how populated these two campgrounds are up here, because this should be a peak, very busy week for them. It's 4th of July was last Friday. Today is July 10th. So it's not even a week since 4th of July. So this should be a big camping week for families and such. And I have camped here before. And these campgrounds normally in past years would be packed with people. Now, I have an inkling, and I've heard through the grapevine that's not so this year. Now, there are a variety of factors involved in this, but one of them is they made two very big changes in the camping fees in New Mexico state parks. It used to be I could buy, as an out-of-stater, which I'm not anymore, but when I was an out-of-stater, I'd pay $225 for an annual camping pass. What I would do with that is I would make 2-week reservations because that was the max stay, was 2 weeks, at each campground I wanted to stay at. I'd plan my trip, and I would book sites with water and electric. And sewer's really not that big a deal when you're only staying for 2 weeks. At least for me, my black tank's not going to be full, but as I move, there's always a way to dump my black tank as I leave or as I arrive at a campground. Water and electric was good. It was $11 a night. And then for each 2-week reservation, I believe it was a $12 reservation fee. That was so $11 for 30 days essentially was $311 plus the 24 or so for 2 reservation fees. So it was less than $350, including utilities, per month. It was golden. Well, that changed this year. They upped that fee, the annual camping pass fee, to $600 from $225. And somebody tell me in the comments, how much is a water and electric site now? I know it's not $11. And as I read the chart, I cannot figure it out. I just can't figure it out. I think it's $20, if not $25. There's ways to read it where it's $30. I really don't know. But it's more than $11 for certain. And each reservation is a maximum of 1 week now. You can only stay 1 week. So I'm assuming that reservation fee is, if you're going to use it all summer, that's going to double your reservation fees because you're going to have to pay every week versus every 2 weeks. I think that was potentially a mistake. And if the census is way down across the state this year, I've got to say that's probably the reason. Now, that said, there are other indications in the area that tourism is down. So you have to factor that in. So the other thing about this, and I hope you're enjoying this beautiful canyon, it just gets better and better as you go along. So don't take your eyes off the screen. It was brought to my attention that over 4th of July, people were coming into town reporting something alarming in the canyon here. The canyon, along the canyon here is a river, and the river has a ton of fish in it because the state stocks this liberally with rainbow trout. And what they were reporting was dead fish everywhere and fish barely living, just barely clinging to life. I'm gonna sneeze. Warning. And people attribute that to they haven't been releasing water from the lake through the dam, so it's getting too shallow. And someone asked me, they said, why don't you go do a video on that so we can get them to open up the dam a little bit and save the fish? I was a little intrigued, but the warning in my head was this, is there are lots of channels that do expose things. That's not what I do. My channel is not about controversy. For example, if I go to film a business with permission and it ends up not being a good experience, you never see the video. I don't do negative things on my channel. If you want reviews, there's other places to go. If you want channels that have critical reviews of things, there are places to go. It's just not my thing. But I did look into it. I did take it seriously. And I talked to someone that has very extensive knowledge. And it's a very complex issue. This dam is not run by the state or the federal government. It's private. And there are legal obligations to ranches and farmers downstream here. And in this year, they've had, in the canyon here and further out where we are, has had a lot more rain than we have had in Eagle Nest where the lake is. So they don't need as much water, so they're not asking for water. And if they don't ask for it, they can't just do it. The purpose of the dam is not fisheries, it's ranching and farming. That's what the dam is there for. Also, one of the things affecting the rainbow trout is the water temperature, and it's suggested that maybe the water temperature is not ideal this year. I don't know about that. Look at the canyon walls here. Check it out. Look at that. Isn't that remarkable? Bottom line is, if I were to do a video on the state of the fish in the canyon here, it would have to be a documentary style video, and I would have to contact and potentially interview many people involved in this process and many organizations, and that would be a major undertaking, and it's not what my channel does. It just isn't. So I'm not going to do a video on that. Look at the canyon here. This guy's just like amazed, so he's pulling over and gawking at it, which, believe me, I have done in the past. What I understand, the rainbow trout, of course, are not native. They're stocked here, and they don't reproduce. The rainbow trout. There are brown trout. They were introduced decades ago, and they do reproduce. They're not exactly native, but they self-perpetuate. The rainbow trout do not. And I believe, from what I'm hearing, what they're seeing is the death of rainbow trout. And these trout are not going to reproduce anyway. So you're not really, the death of a lot of trout because of whatever condition is happening is not a big hit to the ecosystem here. Now, I say that as, am I an ecologist? Am I a biologist? Heck no. common sense tells me that if you were experiencing the death of a lot of fish that were reproducing, that would have ripple effects through time. But if you have the death of a lot of fish, what's the difference between a lot of fish dying and it being overfished by fishermen? So anyway, I could pull off and I could show footage of dead fish by the side of the stream or whatever. I don't see that anyone's going to be served by that. I'm not the channel or the guy to do that, especially since everything that's going on is so complex that pointing the finger at whatever organizations or policies or people control the flow of the dam, it's way too complicated to make a simple observation and say, hey, okay, so there's 2 campgrounds here. One is called Maverick. We're going to go through that one first and see what the population looks like. There's a ranger there. There's a little kid on a bicycle having a great time. There's a reservation site to the left that's open. There's 2 sites. I'm going to count the empty sites. There's 2 sites. I'm sorry. I should have just silenced my phone. And it's not working. The volume's not working to silence it, so I'll have to do that. There's 3. So I screwed up a little here. I got distracted by a friend of mine is sending me multiple texts all at once, and I wasn't prepared for that. And I turned it off my phone and it started banging through on my watch. It's one of the frustrating things about technology. It can be intrusive, right? I think I'm up to about 4 sites. There's 5 empty. There's 6. Seven, 8, 9. Ten, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22 sites, 23 sites. So 23 open sites, that's a lot. So right across the street here, just down a little bit, is Ponderosa. It's my favorite campground here that I've stayed at several times. It's up here on the right. And I'll explain to you how the sites work here. Where we just were, it's all reservation sites. And here it's a combination of reservation and first come, first serve sites, which I was a fan of the first come, first serve. I'll kind of show it to you. The center of this parking lot, they're marked off, those are first come, first serve. The reservation sites are along the perimeter, and I've never seen it this empty. So let's count them. There's one here. I believe it's the handicap site. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this side. And you can park out in the middle of the driveway here, and there's really not a problem. This one would be 7. Eight, 9, 10. Open sites, and just about everyone in the middle to see these stripes mark these other sites. I've definitely never seen it this empty before. So there's something very significant going on in at least these two campgrounds for it to be this empty. And I don't profess to know exactly why. I suspect a big part is the changes in the fees, but again, I'm not an expert. I'm going to shut this off. I got to check those messages, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. We're going to continue our trip through the canyon. We don't need the AC on that high, but it's getting warm. It's getting warm, guys. It's 77. According to the truck, that's going to be high. I would say it's more like 73. The Ford always reads high. On my model, it's behind the front grille under the hood, so it's not that great. Later models, they moved it, I think, to the side view mirrors, and I think that's more accurate. But we're through probably the most spectacular portion of the canyon, and I'll have you stick with me for a while here until it flattens out. One of the things I hope to show you is there was a large burn that actually threatened the town of Cimarron, and you can see how devastating it was as we get up to it here. Also, we're going to be passing Ute Park, and Ute Park in the day, that's the railroad went to Ute Park. It didn't go any further than that. A lot of people back then were hoping it was, but it went as far as Ute Park. So materials to places like Eagle Nest would get delivered by train at Ute Park, and they'd have to be transported like by mule or horse, or however they transported large things in those days over the trails to get into Eagle Nest, which was tough. It's a breeze driving through the canyon in an air-conditioned F-150, but it's a whole different story otherwise. When it's 1890 and there's no cars. There's also an amazing museum out here in Cimarron that we won't be visiting today. It takes at least an hour to go through, and I'm going to do a separate video on that this summer. I have plenty of time. And I've had plenty of things to shoot. I am 4 videos ahead. That's unprecedented for me, when usually it's, if I'm one day ahead, it's unusual, and often the short will come out in the morning and long form in the afternoon, because I do the long form during the day. But now all the museum content has kept me pretty busy, and there's quite a few very long videos that aren't going to get huge views right away, but they call that evergreen content. It'll be content that people will watch a few people will watch over many years, I believe. There's a lot of history about the area and tours and things that'll be relatively timeless. The river is running to the right of us here. You can't see it from the road, but it is. You see how lush it is over there on the right. That's because there's a river runs through it, right? And it does come up pretty close to the road around a bend up here, as I recall. It's actually close. A little bit of it's close right here, but you still can't see it. It's a New Mexico State Forestry Office, we just met. And Philmont is the property of the Boy Scouts, and I think it's something that, correct me, get out there in those comments, because I can't Google while I'm driving, but I think it's about 400,000 acres that the Boy Scouts own out here. But someone like Ken will get out there and Google and say how many acres it is. And we're right along, you can barely see the river to the right. It's right alongside of the road here. And there's a little bit of a gully, so it's almost impossible to see from here. See if I can catch a glimpse. I did for a little bit, but I didn't register how high or low it might be, because I really couldn't see. And there's barbed wire fence up here, which tells me that's private property. You can't pull off the side of the road, grab your fishing rod, go down there and fish. There's barbed wire on the right there that I'm not sure you can absolutely see. There's a turnoff here, but again, there's no access off into that land, which tells me it's not public land. There's a gate there, but it does say no trespassing. And I see that I did catch a glimpse of the river, and it looked fairly normal in terms of volume of water. I'm no expert though. It's certainly, the water is bank to bank, the obvious banks, it's there. But again, I'm not an expert in the area. Certainly not with water flow. And the river's still following the road. The road is following the river here. And while you can't see it, the thick grove of trees and the lush vegetation tells you there's a water source very close. And it's the river for sure. So if you're along here, there's plenty of places to pull off, to rest, but there's nowhere to walk. You can't go anywhere because of the fencing. It's private property. It's not as spectacular as the middle of Cimarron Canyon, but it's still pretty cool, isn't it? Here you see the burn up there. Look at the burned out forest on the right. And that's what I wanted you to see. And there's more of it up here. This burn got within sight of Cimarron and threatened that whole community. And when we do go to the museum, there's a whole display on the ground. I apologize for the sudden cutoff, but it reached its limit for heat. And one of the things I'm doing, you might hear the AC in the background, as I tilted the vents up as high as they go to reach the area where the camera is as much as possible, to try to keep that temperature down. But we're right outside of Cimarron at this point. It's about a 20-25 minute drive through the canyon from Eagle Nest into beautiful little Cimarron. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to the hotel first, and I'm going to do a walkthrough on the hotel. And I think you're really going to enjoy that. Then I'm going to go get a little laundry done, get a bite to eat, go through the local grocery store, which I just love, and we're going to hit I won't film it, but I'm going to hit the dollar store here to buy some cat food for George. We got like one serving of cat food left. So we got to slow her down here. 35. There's a heliport here in Cimarron. The gas station, look at that, $2.84 a gallon. That's as low as I've seen it anywhere in a pretty long time. We got less than a half a tank. We'll top off here at $2.84. And the market's on the right there, the creamy drive-in and the laundry. But first, we're going to go to the historical part of town. The Santa Fe Trail is right here in Cimarron. And that explains why there were so many historical Western figures that stayed at This hotel, including my favorite Wyatt Earp, but many, many others, which we will see when we get in there. And they have guest registers, and they know which rooms were their favorites. It's a pretty cool thing, and it's going to be coming up here any second on the left. You can see the old mill on the right there. That's where the museum is, but this is it. Yep, it's the St. James Hotel. Check it out. Under new ownership. And we have arrived at the St. James. And we will leave this AC running for Dottie, because Dottie's not allowed in the hotel, are you, Dottie? We will take the filter off. There we go. And it's under new management, so we're gonna have to go in and make sure it's okay to film. In there. Here's some rules. There's some new rules here. I'll have to talk there. Okay, no video. Folks, I'm really surprised. As you could see there, I went through the lobby and I stopped and I read no video. So I shut it off and I waited, and the manager came out, and so I approached her and asked her about that. And she said there's no exceptions. There's absolutely no filming allowed. And photography, but no video. And she said the reason is people have vandalized things and stolen things. And I'm not quite sure what the connection is between video versus photography. Video is just a bunch of photographs taken in sequence. But I said, how about if you watch my channel and see what kind of channel it is? I do a video every year. She said, I can't make any exceptions ever for any reason. I'm sorry, no video is going to be allowed permanently. Very nice and polite lady for sure. But they've made that decision. So at the end of the video, I will do a link to the tour I did. A couple of videos I did last year if you're curious to see about the hotel and the history in the inside. You can't even walk up, unless you're a guest or a staff, you can't even walk up in the second floor anymore. It's very restricted now. Sadly, I'm gonna head over, do a little bit of laundry, and we'll go into Creamy and get a cheeseburger, and we'll see you in a few minutes. I'm still kind of reeling a little bit from the idea that I can't film in the St. James anymore. But you know what? It is their private property, and they have every right to do that. So I'm just gonna go through here. This is a little historical walk here. There's an interesting sign here that there's a well over there that used to be used, and there's a walking tour you can take of all the old foundations and buildings and such right there. So if you come here, you come down by the St. James. Now, what I should have mentioned is if you want to see the inside of the same change, the only thing that seems to be restricted is the second floor, and it implied that they have tours. So you can call them in advance, see when they're doing a tour, and they will give you a tour. Now, it's really interesting because the rooms, many of the rooms are named for the famous people that stayed there in those rooms. They're named after the people. There's a Wyatt Earp room, like an Annie Oakley room, et cetera, et cetera. But you'll see that in the video that I link in the at the end. You can click on at the end of this video. You want to see the inside. I'll have to hang on to that video. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I was contemplating that being my last video because they were selling it and there was no guarantee that it was going to be bought. But that illustrates the importance of seeking permission even in places that you've done multiple videos in. And I knew well enough that they'd sold, so when I walked in, I headed towards the front desk. There was no one there, and luckily I stopped and read that sign, and recognized that it said absolute photography is okay, but absolutely no video. And then I just stood, I turned everything off, and I waited for someone there was no one behind the desk. And when someone came out, it was the manager. And she, like I said, she was very nice. So I have no doubt that if you stay there, if you're a guest there, you'll have full access to both floors, and I think the accommodations for you will be very nice. If she's the manager, she is seems like a very kind person. So I don't mean to disparage their decision, and I just want to say again, it's their right to do that. Absolutely. There's no right to film anything on private property, only public. Right, Dottie? We'll be back in a minute. This is, check it out, Creamy Drive-In. It's right next to the laundromat. It is very cool. Great burgers. A cheeseburger is $10.99, and it's served with a side. And it's $1 extra. There's French fries, tater tots, onion rings, mac and cheese, potato salad, mixed fruit. And if you want to get onion rings, it's an extra $1. Otherwise, it's free and included. Isn't that great? See you in a few. This is Russell's grocery store. I really like this little grocery store. And I'll do a brief walkthrough here. I didn't film inside the laundromat. There are just too many people in there. And I didn't want to have to ask 10 people for permission to film them. There are people in here, but we'll get a little cart. We may buy the cat food in here if it's reasonably priced, but we do need eggs, we know that. Oh, extra large, 18 for $5.39. I'll take it all day long. And we do want some cold cuts, but they're not here. They're probably down here, maybe. Did I miss cold cuts somewhere? Let's look one more time. It seems like it should be here. There is cheese, but I don't see cold cuts. They're somewhere else. We will figure that out. Look how neatly stocked everything is, though. Isn't that great? And do we have, yes, they have breakfast sandwiches. Do they have the kind I like? Maybe not. But we, in a pinch, these will do. Literally everything is neat as a pin here. Check it out, neat as a pin. And I see the cold cuts. There's bread. Look, the light comes on when you approach. It's a motion sensor. Okay. We would very much like some nice ham. This is lean ham, lean honey ham. That sounds good to me. Tortillas, English muffins. So we've got to look for cat food. Pretty sure I've bought it here before. Let's take a look. I think it's the next aisle over. Yes. Okay. It's Doug. And Meow Mix. All right, very reasonable. $7.25. Good enough. Now, do we have anything else that we see that we have to have? I like taking a second look at the frozen food. Always worth a second look at frozen food. You never know what treasure you may find. Got enough ice cream at home. There's lasagna. Nothing's reaching out and grabbing me. Oh, you know what looks good? How about this frozen stromboli? Pepperoni and cheese. Yeah, that looks like that might be something fun. What do you think? And I don't see anything in dairy here calling out to me. We're good. We are good. All right, we're going to shut her off. I'm going to shut her off here, and before we go to the register, so we don't get any people that don't want to be on film. We'll see you in a minute. And this doesn't look nearly as good as it tastes, but it's, trust me, it's a great cheeseburger. And I'm going to enjoy it. And Dottie looks interested, doesn't she? I've just got a couple of minutes to go before my stuff is ready in the dryer, and I'm going to head back to camp, and I'm going to conclude this video, and I'm going to end it right here. I appreciate you joining me for my little jaunt off to Cimarron, and I said at least you got to see a little bit of the St. James Hotel. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.